everyone. My name is Shreyashi Roy.
And my name is Amola Mehta, and we will be sharing some of the key findings from the Bharat Survey for EdTech.
The Bharat Survey for EdTech, or BaSE, hopes to address some critical gaps in the EdTech ecosystem. By bringing out the voice of the end users in low-income segments, it aims to provide reliable information to diverse stakeholders for informed decision-making.
BaSE explores trends around three thematic pillars. These are access to technology, user sentiment around EdTech adoption, and EdTech usage. The themes were identified to ensure that the insights from the survey captured the range of factors that affect one's experience of engaging with EdTech. It was important to consider access to technology to understand exposure to EdTech and the extent of its usage. Therefore, the survey explores access to basic resources such as smartphones and digital devices, as well as the internet. Access to these is influenced by factors such as economic feasibility, comfort with using technology, geographical location, and the supporting infrastructure such as reliable electricity and cellular connectivity. Similarly, it was critical to examine the sentiments of end users in this case, families from low-income households. Instead of taking for granted that all households have similar views regarding children's education and EdTech, BaSE attempts to gauge on-ground realities. It strives to capture how different households respond to known and emerging learning solutions. Finally, the survey examines the multiple facets that constitute EdTech usage. It was essential to formulate an understanding of the children who use EdTech, including what drives their usage, what doesn't, how they perceive the benefit of using technology to learn, how many of them sees their usage and why, among many other insights.
These three thematic pillars anchored the way the survey was conducted. 6 states were selected on the basis of the population size and extent of internet penetration. These were Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Odisha, Mizoram, and Telangana. Within each state, these were approximately 1,000 low-income households that were randomly sampled in both urban and rural settlements. The households selected were either sending their children to government or affordable private schools. The analysis considered the type of settlements and the gender and the grades of the children in those households. Further, data collection was carried out from the month of November 2022 to the month of January 2023. Development Solutions was the survey and analysis partner, and Professor Amrish Dongre of IIM Ahmedabad provided extensive and valuable inputs as the academic advisor.
We will now go through some of the noteworthy insights from the survey. Under access to technology, findings at the level of the household were explored first, and then at the level of the school-going child in the household. Within households, it was found that 85% owned at least one smartphone. Out of these, 1 in 3 had more than one smartphone. Not only did urban areas have greater smartphone penetration than rural areas, they also had a higher proportion of more than one smartphone available. Of the 15% of households that did not own a smartphone, the most prominent reason was high cost of device. For the households not owning a smartphone, the self-reported average annual income was 81,000 rupees, whereas for those who owned one, reported an average income of 1.2 lakh rupees. When exploring the extent of smartphone possession amongst family members, it was found that fathers were most often the primary possessor, with nearly 66% of them having the phone for the maximum duration during the day. This was followed by mothers, out of whom 36% were the primary owners, and then children, out of whom 20% were the primary possessors.
When looking at children's access to smartphones, it was found that 72% had access and less than a third did not. Of those children who had access, 66% had shared access. This means that children were sharing the smartphone with other members of the household. Interestingly, no gender-level variations were observed when it came to accessing smartphones. When delving deeper into smartphone usage by children, it was noted that more than 60% use smartphones daily. 74% of them used it for more than 30 minutes on a given day. Additionally, it was observed that while a greater proportion of fathers were primary possessors of smartphones than mothers, children were more likely to use their mother's smartphones.
Gotten an overview of the levels of access to technology, we will now share findings relating to the sentiments of users towards education and EdTech adoption. It was found that 33% of households believed that school education was not sufficient for students to perform well in studies. Further, 37% of households reported availing paid private tuition for their child's education. When referring to EdTech, 86% of respondents reported being aware that technology could be used for learning purposes. Subsequently, 11% of all households stated that they intended to purchase a smartphone within the next 6 months of the survey being conducted. A higher proportion of households that did not already own a smartphone demonstrated the intention to purchase one.
Now we come to the third thematic pillar, EdTech usage. Upon exploring the trends, it became apparent that there were children who presently used EdTech, those who had stopped using EdTech, and those who had never engaged with EdTech. 51% of children were currently using and interacting with EdTech tools. Their exposure was mediated either by materials shared by teachers through digital mediums or by virtue of being self-learners. In urban households, a higher proportion of girls were self-learners than boys. The most popular tools for learning purposes were YouTube, WhatsApp, and Google in that order. Children preferred to use EdTech to study English, followed by math. Further, it was found that of the children whose parents could operate at least one tech tool, whether it's YouTube, WhatsApp, or Facebook, 63% of children were presently using EdTech. Whereas of the children whose parents could not operate a tech tool, a lower proportion of 26% were presently using EdTech.
We would like to mention that these are only some of the insights shared with you today. We hope you take the time to read the BaSE report available with you. A digital copy of the BaSE report and raw data sets from the survey will be available for download on our website as well.
As we conclude, we would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has been instrumental in shaping the Bharat Survey for EdTech, or BaSE. We sincerely hope that the stakeholders in the ecosystem, including policymakers, product companies, investors, academics, and other important decision makers, can use the insights from the survey to shape the future of EdTech in Bharat. Thank you.